The power to change your life begins with the choices you make, right here and now. This is Skull Babylon, and you're about to listen to another inspiring and empowering episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. On this episode, we welcomed on guest Jake Ducey, a 21-year-old best-selling author of his book Into the Wind, a story of the life he left behind to set out and follow his dreams and experience firsthand what the universe had to teach him. Earlier on in the show, we kicked some tires while waiting for Jake to join us on air as we bounced a few ideas around. But once he was on, we discussed the value his book has for the people who read it, and how his story can teach all of us to let go of that which does not serve us, and how we all must take responsibility for what we create, intentionally or unintentionally. Check out Jake's book for yourself, connect with him, watch his videos, and order the book through his website at jakeducey.com. Like the show at facebook.com/paradigmshiftradio, connect with the larger global community of shifters at facebook.com/paradigmshiftcentral, and tune in for future episodes as we continue to be a reflective lens for all of us to be able to see more of who we are and what we are capable of. Choose to be the change you wish to see in the world, and enjoy the show.
There is nothing I don't already know, I exclaimed out loud, even though I was the only one in the room with whom I could share my epiphany. I realized then that I had only needed to prove it to myself. This is Skull Babylon, and you're tuned in for another exciting, inspirational, awesome episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. And that was actually a quick quote, not something from myself, but actually something from our guest tonight, Jake Ducey. And that's a little thing from his book, Into the Wind, which is a really inspirational story. And I started reading it not too long ago, so I'm not finished it yet. And we will be talking about that. And just to be honest with everyone, we are actually sort of waiting for Jake to show up. I haven't seen him online in the past couple hours at least, but presuming things will play out as they need to, I'm sure he'll drop in when the time is right. But in the meantime, I got some community news that I do want to be able to go over with you guys. Just a few quick exciting updates actually, and just a couple little tidbits and nonchalant sort of stories I just want to share with you guys. Just some really interesting things in terms of synchronicity, which totally does go in theme with what Jake's book is about. And if you haven't yet, check out the links to Jake's book in the information for the Blog Talk Radio show. You'll see it on the right, but make sure you right click and open that up in a new tab, or else you'll accidentally go off of this actual website and sort of have to like rebuffer the show. But just in terms of links, you can find the links for Jake's book over at Amazon, and it's a best-selling book. It's about around 150 pages, and it's about his basic journey where he left what he was doing in school. He wasn't really satisfied, and he had been dealing with some addictions of his own, and then he just sort of goes into the wind and sort of sees what the universe will bring his way based on the fact that he's following his heart and just really trying to discover more of who he is. And like I said, we'll get more into that. And I really want to sort of wait for him to be here with us as we sort of talk more about it. But definitely check out the links for that. And it's jakeducey.ca is the actual website where you can find out more. Or sorry, not .ca, .com is the actual link where you can find more about that. And hold on, I just got to make sure I'm kind of multitasking a couple things with what I'm doing right now, and I don't have my normal wingman. Rain actually isn't with us tonight, but I theoretically could be looking for someone to call in as a wingman. And so if somebody wants to, wingman or woman, if somebody actually sort of wants to sort of sit in and be a third person in this conversational triangle that will eventually include Jake as well, feel free to call into the show, because just to remind everybody, this is a very community oriented show, and we would love to be able to get some more people involved with the conversation here. So let me just double check with my information. And yeah, obviously it is jakeducey.com. So that's DUCEY is the information where you can find out more about himself, more about his book, links to his Facebook page, and also links to his YouTube, because he puts up a lot of inspirational episodes and stuff on there as well. And just a reminder for everybody in the live chat, please continue to boost the show. So post the links for it on your respected pages, and especially for the Paradigm Shift community admins, please continue to post it on your pages as well, so we can get the word out there and just help develop cohesion and strengthen the neural network we are as a digital community. So just a couple things that I really want to, I'm not, like I said, Jake isn't here right now, and not that I'm killing time, but I'm not going to rush through some stuff, because there are some things that I actually did want to talk to you guys about, some pretty exciting things. In particular, we've been doing Paradigm Shift Radio for almost a year now. The first episode was around the end of June, and basically we have been doing it for just almost every single week for the past year. There's only been a couple weeks that we sort of like stepped away from it. And the cool part is that this is actually episode 49. And 7 times 7 equals 49. And one thing that I was actually reading when we were talking about last week, I barely touched upon it, but it was the idea of like the auric fields and how the body actually replenishes itself every 7 years. So like 7 is a common sort of duration for a cycle, which is really interesting. So now as we as a community move into episode 49, I am perceiving it and I'm looking at it as this beginning of a new cycle. So things are actually going to be like upgrading around here, which is really exciting for the Paradigm Shift community, because we want to be able to bring, like I said, just sort of alluding to earlier, I'd like to see more cohesion between all of the global digital Paradigm Shift communities. And for those of you who are listening to this show who are new to it, let me just give you the basic recap. Paradigm Shift Radio is a branch of Paradigm Shift Central, and Paradigm Shift Central is a collective hub for all these communities across the world that are encouraging open-minded discussion and the evolution of consciousness and healthy living, and just doing what they can to help bring their information into wherever they are and help to connect and build more community where they are by like finding other like-minded people through the awesome magic of things like synchronicity and putting up posters and planning, organizing actual physical events in like locations such as libraries and having that sort of conversation ongoing. So you can find all the information. And there's over like 60 of the actual communities across the globe right now that are active. And for those of you who are thinking about starting up a Paradigm Shift community, there's some good news for you as well. And for those of you who already are like starting up a Paradigm Shift community, if you haven't seen already, I've been talking about this, and those of you who already know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I've created a new group specifically for the Paradigm Shift admins. So if you're a person who is operating Paradigm Shift page in your location, so for example, I'm part of Paradigm Shift London, so facebook.com/Paradigm Shift London, that's Ontario, Canada, and obviously, for those of you who haven't like checked out or added me yet, if you can feel free to add me as well at facebook.com/skullbabylon. But the actual group that I'm talking about is going to be a place where I'm just going to be actually looking for a little bit more feedback between one another within the community, so that we can talk about tactics and progress reports that we as admins are sort of like relaying back to one another to say like, hey, you know, like this is a tactic that works in my area. And when I mean tactics, like it's simple things. So I mean, this isn't really about overcomplicating it. And what I actually like to be able to use the group for is to be able to share digital media files. So these are templates for things like posters, templates for things like business cards, and like other sort of handouts that we can sort of reconfigure to our individual locations and have as something that we can give people and leave in places. You know, you can leave them on park benches, you can sort of like leave them on bus seats, and these are places where other people will be able to synchronistically pick them up, and then it will get directed back to your website, and it'll help the growth of your community. And like I said, tying in with the whole idea that you want to be actually having these physical meetings, because for those of you who like are still and there's something else that I need to mention that totally ties in with this. A lot of people are starting to really feel more of that global community thing that's going on, this idea that like as Earth we are one, which is something that I specifically want to mention because there's an awesome new group, and it literally is new. It's only been around for maybe like a couple weeks at this point, but the group itself is like, when I say group, it's like a Facebook group opposed to a page. The group itself is linked off of the page Earth We Are One, and I'm going to post the links for these both into the live chat as well. So there's the link for the Paradigm Shift Community admin. So if you're looking to join as a Paradigm Shift Community admin, or if you already are one, please join that one. But if you want to join a huge group that's like active with over 1,300 users and it's constantly new conversation, then check out the link for that. And all these links will be up into the show notes as well when this episode is posted up on YouTube, so you'll be able to backtrack and find the information there. And this Earth We Are One group is really cool because there's so many people that you can go to it and like refresh the page, read a whole bunch of conversations, see a whole bunch of interesting posts that people are putting up, refresh the page again, and it's like a whole like new selection of stuff because there's like always people like bumping and always people like adding to different conversations. So that is a like a branch group off the Facebook page, Earth We Are One. And I know that they've actually been supporting our work as an ally in what we're doing here at Paradigm Shift Radio, which is totally awesome because we want to be able to get more people involved with the show and what we're doing and encourage them to be able to start up Paradigm Shift communities in their area and to be able to help really build the tribe where they are and get those conversations going and just connect with one another. So it's this world is like a sandbox, and all we got to do is just remember how to have fun and play in it, which is totally cool. And so I'm just kind of going over my notes in my notebook right here, just sort of talking and reading at the same time. But yeah, so the groups are a big thing, and in there you're going to be like seeing objectives that I'm going to be putting up. So a simple objective to all the group community admins will be something as simple as sharing the Paradigm Shift radio shows. So I mean, simple things like that. But then it's actually going to start like evolving as the group sort of evolves, and we're going to start bringing in new elements, and things like buttons and stuff are going to be eventually like more common within the communities, and I want to be able to get those distributed as well. And there's also the talk again of t-shirts. A lot of you remember we talked about this in the past. Well, there's a guy who I've gotten in contact with recently, and he's pretty excited about the idea. So we're going to be able to have some Paradigm Shift t-shirts in the future. So again, keep an eye open for those, and yeah, that's pretty much all you need to be able to do, because you'll see the posts. All the main posts will be going up through facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Central. And if you haven't joined that group as well, that is also a good group to join, because that's where you'll find sort of posts where if there's a new group that sort of goes up, that's where you'll find information about it. And just general posts relating to the radio show, and t-shirts and buttons and events that you should know about. So check that out at facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Central. And in addition to that, just in terms of, because I still waiting for Jake to come online. I haven't seen him yet, but I'm just going to, okay, like there is somebody who's calling in, but there's no way for me to guarantee whether or not it is Jake, unfortunately. So, and they're not like pressed into the queue, so I can't presume it's them either. So let me just go over a couple other notes that I just want to mention real quick, and then we'll try bringing on this caller, and then we'll sort of go from there. But I just got to mention to you guys, the Journey to Lucidity project, as you've heard me talk about in the past, is really coming along, and the early version of the movie, like Journey to Lucidity, at GoFundMe.com/Journey to Lucidity, everybody's kind of already aware of that, but that's where you can go to pretty much purchase your ticket to be able to watch this movie for yourself. And it's already getting some awesome feedback from those of you who have seen the early version of it. And basically, once we raise enough money within the GoFundMe, like within its project goal, then the film is actually going to be released online to the world for free. But until we actually reach that, we can't do it. So we need to be able to like raise more awareness of it as a community and really get it out. And the feedback about the film has been super awesome. Like people are referring to it as like amazing and inspiring, and like they're just really complimenting the editing and stuff. So I'm super happy with how it turned out, and I know that you guys will be super like impressed with like what it is, just in terms of the fact that like you're a part of it as well, and it's a part of our story, and it's something that all of us should be happy to share. So GoFundMe.com/Journey to the City is where you can purchase your digital ticket to view that. And other than that, I don't really think there's too much I'm going to get into right now, because I just want to see if these next few people who are in the queue may or may not be Jake, because I not want to keep him waiting, and I know you guys would love to hear from him. So if this is the case, then I'm just going to bring on these people here and we'll see what is up. So caller from area code 469, if you are ready, we're just going to bring you onto the air, see what's up, and if you're not Jake, then that's cool. Maybe we can talk for a little bit too. So on behalf of Paradigm Shift Radio, here we go. Mysterious caller, we're bringing you on. Hello, caller.
Hey, how's it going, Brendon?
Hey, caller, who is this?
This is Jeff from DFW.
Right on,
area.
I thought it was. Yeah, from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area. Is that in Texas? Is that Dallas, Fort Worth?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Right on, man. Yeah, I saw you in the chat. Right on. Okay, cool. Yeah. So obviously you're not Jake, but that's let me just check. There's another person calling in from area code 901. So hold on. Jeff, I'm just gonna mute you just for 2 seconds, and I'll bring you back on, just depending on who this next person is. So bear with me, bro.
All good.
All right.
Sure.
So caller from area code 901. I know you're not queued up, but if it is Jake, I just want to be able to double check to make sure that it isn't Jake. So caller from area code 901, we're going to bring you onto the air now. Here we go. Hello, caller. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, this obviously is not Jake Ducey. But hi, caller.
Right.
Is there? Do you want to be? Or did you want to be on the air, or were you just listening?
I'm just listening in.
You're just listening. Okay, cool. Well, did you want to say hello while you're here?
Well, hello, everyone.
Right on. Okay, caller, should we let you go, or you're gonna go back to listening? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll go back to listening. Thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, caller. We love you.
Love you too.
Oh, okay, cool. So, yeah, obviously, I really don't know like where Jake is. I mean, I had talked to him earlier in the day, but he's a busy guy. I mean, there's a lot to him, and I myself am not really the person to tell the full story, but I know he is involved with like a lot of like inspirational speaking that he does, and yeah, like he helps out with like several foundations and helping actually bring like education to some kids in other parts of the world, which is pretty exciting. And obviously, like I said, he's the author of a best-selling book, Into the Wind, which has gotten a lot of good feedback and a lot of support from some very well-recognized names. Like let me just read a quick quote for you, just from like someone who had read his book and had something to say about it. So he said, Jake's adventure of illuminating past mistakes into divine greatness is an inspiration for anyone wanting to go beyond their negative mental conditioning. And that's by a guy named Dr. David Corbin, and he is an author, an inventor, and a life coach. So, I mean, I'm not totally familiar with him. And another person had this to say about Jake's book. This is a guy named Johnny Campbell, and he is known as the Transition Man, and he is a speaker in the Speaker Hall of Fame. So he's obviously a good speaker. And it says, Jake's book and ability to speak will take you from your transition phase to one of success and purpose. So another good word there. And another guy, Nick Halleck, who is a thrillionaire. I guess that's a thing in itself. And he is also an author and a motivational speaker. Had this to say about Jake's book. He said, Jake is fearless and a daring young man with a message and journey that will make you leap off the edge of comfort into your destiny. So yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. And like I'm only like 40 pages into the book. Like I literally just finished a chapter where like Jake was meeting up with a shaman in Guatemala, and like really the shaman sort of like revealed some stuff to him about himself that sort of like helped him see more of who he was, that really sort of like shook Jake up, but at the same time like helped him figure out like what he was there to do in his life purpose. And again, like I mean I could literally tell you everything I know about the book, but we'll still just sort of play it out and see. Like I mean, hopefully, you know, like I don't want to say fingers crossed, because I'd rather like not have them crossed. I'd rather have them open to flow and like whatever needs to come our way. But either way, we you know, we put out the intention that Jake will be able to join us later on in the show, and this is like a 2-hour show, so we'll see where it goes from there. But with that said, so I mean I already mentioned the obvious stuff at the top, and obviously check out. Oh, another thing. Okay, I'll just mention this because this is relating to community news. And okay, now there's another person calling in, but I don't know if it's Jake or not. So I'm sorry, they're not showing that they're queued up, but I just gotta double check just to see in case. So caller from area code 816. If you're listening, if you're just listening, that's cool. I'm gonna bring you on and you can say hello. But if it is Jake, then we'll go from there. So caller from area code 816. Here we go. Hello,
Hi.
hello caller. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hi,
Not
caller.
Jake.
It's not Jake. Okay, caller, did you want to say hi?
Sure. Hi.
Okay, cool.
I was on a few weeks ago. So.
Sorry, caller, who is this? Like I recognize.
Belina, humans.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Well, caller, did you want to be on to talk, or did you want to just listen? Because we can bring like you on with Jeff, and we can like turn this into like a roundtable discussion until Jake shows up. Is that something you want to do?
That'll be fine. We can talk. I don't.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah. Give me just 2 seconds here, and I'll bring you back onto the air in like 1 minute. Is that cool?
Okay, sure.
Cool. Sounds good. Awesome. All right. One thing that one thing I was gonna mention, and Actually, I mean, it's not like a huge deal because I mean, like I am about to bring Jeff and our other caller onto the air, but I did mention all this stuff off the top of the bat. So Journey to Lucidity is like getting really good feedback, and I want to be able to share that with you guys. So GoFundMe.com/Journey to Lucidity. Check that out. Check out the new Paradigm Shift admin group, specifically for the Paradigm Shift admins and those who are aspiring to set up their own communities and are looking for tips and stuff. And ParadigmShiftCentral.com/tips is the other place for that. And obviously check out Jake's stuff at JakeDucey.com. And one thing that I just wanted to mention is that last week we've had the March Against Monsanto, and I did put up a new video for that after the show aired on Monday. So you can check out the new video that I got up for the March on Monsanto out of London, Ontario, from like my gonzo journalism style. And that's all at my YouTube at youtube.com/SkullBabylon. But what I was just going to mention in terms of Monsanto, it was pretty interesting because I saw like an article today that apparently Monsanto had been like found guilty of like some sort of crimes in terms of like poisoning farmers with pesticide in, was it France? I think it was France. Found guilty of chemical. Yeah, it was in France. So that was that's like kind of an updated news in terms of success, and I'll post an article for that into the live chat. So everybody who's been following the Monsanto thing, I think that's sort of like a milestone. And there's also been like other posts that I've seen put up about like its success in other places in Europe. So that's pretty cool to hear that all of our marching and all of our attention that we were involved with in the last week's Monsanto march actually did make like a ripple throughout like this reality that we're all in. And the fact that we can like create this reality is totally what Jake's book is about. So again, stay tuned because I am sure he's going to be here later in the show and you won't want to miss that. But in the meantime, we're going to bring on Jeff and we're going to bring on our other caller. I didn't fully hear her first name, so I can't. We'll get her to repeat that, and then we'll sort of go into things. Like I'd love to be able to talk to you guys about the crazy like synchronistic story that happened to me just like the other day in terms of like my resonating number 96, which was like totally just like so funny for me. But we'll sort of see where it goes from there. So Jeff and other caller, we're going to bring you on, and for the time being, like I said, until Jake shows up, this is going to be a community roundtable discussion episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. So for anybody else who would like to join into the community roundtable, you're totally welcome to call into the show, and you can call in off a regular phone at 347-535-5493, or you can dial in through Skype using the Skype icon chat at the top of the page. So until we actually get more callers, it's going to be us three on the air, and we'll see where it goes from there. So Jeff and other caller, we're going to bring you guys on. Here we go. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Hello. My name is Valina.
Valina. Okay, yeah, sorry, I wasn't totally sure. Right on. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me here on the show. And yeah, I mean, there's no reason that we can't just like get comfortable because I mean, there's no like rush or anything. We sort of got the space to ourselves. But I'll just sort of in terms of like the paradigm shift, just like discussion that we're all about here. It really is about like anything that we want to be able to talk about and practice talking about. So without me even having to like put a discussion topic into the circle of this, I'll just ask either Jeff or Valina, would you guys, do you guys have something that you'd like to bring to the discussion here off the top of your head? Something that maybe you wanted to mention earlier on?
I'll let you take that first, Jeff.
Sure, why not? Yeah, I was just going to add a little inspiration and sort of just be Xbox One wingman, you know, until Jake comes on board or whatnot.
Right on. So Jeff, did you have, was there anything else like that you sort of like come across recently that is worth sharing in terms of like, you know, mysteries of the universe, news, all that? You know what I'm talking about.
Right. Well, just, you know, listening to Jake's little video made me think back of when I was in the Army, and I was in Panama for jungle school, and we did a little mission with the Red Cross, and we helped clear, you know, some trash for, you know, like this basically it was underprivileged children. And we had set up a barbecue for them, and basically it was a huge field, and it was just so much junk there. And basically I was feeling kind of down because I'd been punched the night previously in the eye. long story short, a friend of mine, he had been drinking, and he was basically really drunk and was peeing inside the building next to my bed. So I told him to go away, and he ended up just, sucker punching me. And so I had a black eye the next day, but, the kids didn't care. It was great to just, be there, and I totally forgot about my black eye, just getting outside of my bubble and helping them. And just listening to Jake made me think about that. So, it's cool.
That's cool. Which video was that of Jake's? Like, do you remember the title of it? Because he's got some good videos up on his YouTube.
I think it was the first one in his list. So he was just talking about how, inspiring others was, just his gift. And, it just shined through everyone. When I think one of the shamans was talking about how his spirit, or just being in the room with him, would, light everyone else up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like Jake is again, I'm really looking forward to talking to him, because in some of his videos that anybody can watch at his YouTube channel at youtube.com/Jake Ducey, like you see, he's a very moving speaker, and he's very authentic with what he's talking about, and a lot of based on what I've read in the book so far is really cool, because he talks about how at a very young age his grandfather actually told him you can create, your thoughts create what you want to create, what you if you want something, go for it, and if you're persistent, you will find it, you will achieve that goal. So he sort of had that motivation and that empowering thought pattern sort of built into him from a very young age. And then kind of relating back to the story of the book, he was sort of going through school, he wasn't very totally satisfied with what school was offering him, and he was dealing with some addictions. And part of the story is that he actually got in a very, very serious car accident, I think in 2007 it talks about in the book. And that was, I think he was he was drunk driving when that happened. So sort of made him almost within that moment, he really had to reflect on the fact that he was lucky to be alive, and that obviously is part of his story. To sort of, you don't want to wait until the day you're dead to look back and say did I follow my dreams? Did I live a life I wanted to, or was I living the life of someone else's expectations, sort of thing. So there's a lot of stuff that Jake talks about, and one of the things that caught my attention in one of his videos, he talks about how the cure for lack of fear, or the cure for fear, is action. So he's he calls upon other people to take action in their life and really just sort of tap into the happiness that is inside of them, instead of trying to chase material things, and understanding that in any given moment it's our attitude towards it that can change our perspective of it. And we do always have to remind ourselves that we do have control as to how we respond to any given situation that we're sort of put ourselves in. So that was just something that sort of caught my attention. If you guys have some thoughts or comments, or even personal things you can reflect upon or whatever.
You always have a choice. That's
definitely.
Yeah. I don't know, there's all kinds of movies that talk about that, you always have a choice. People think that, I have to, or I must, or, or you can blame other people and stuff like that, and so, because you did this, I did that, and, it's all fear-based and stuff, but really you have a choice, and you can take responsibility for what you decide to do and what you manifest in your life.
Yeah. Jake talks about, how in any given situation we can sort of ask ourselves, what's the best and worst thing that can happen. And there's a lot of ideas where you don't know what the best thing that can happen is until you actually take that first step to find out what the universe is going to give to you,
sort of thing. Because I mean, if you like put out your heart, like the universe is going to like try to meet you halfway and really sort of like fulfill what it is that you're like seeking and what it is that you're trying to like find within yourself, sort of thing. You know, like the idea like that the universe like isn't by nature like a bully by any means. But yeah, like if you don't take that first step, then you won't find out like what gifts the universe has like to offer you. And I think that's like the situation that a lot of society is in, is that they aren't taking that first step. Like they're keeping themselves like inside like this little like circle, like this like imaginary circle that they've sort of been drawn into by someone else, kind of thing. And like if the world like really wants to change itself, it has to come from the individual people really doing what it is that they love, and that like gives other people permission to do what it is that they love as well. So, you know, Jeff or maybe someone who found some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to find what resonates with you, and then if it resonates with you, then it may spark that other person's action. You know, just being, you know, like the other time I was going to call in, I think it was the Star Wars episode, and I was going to talk about how I built a Jedi temple up at work. But I was a little nervous first time calling in or whatnot. So, but I actually have paradigm shift cards that have Obi-Wan Kenobi on the card. So, and I was talking to a guy. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's what I was talking about. I was like, at the end of all those movies, it's when they said Anakin was supposed to bring balance to the Force, and he did, because he finally realized his choice. You know, he didn't follow his master. He had the choice to save his son. You know, and that was
yeah, that totally boiled it down to like a single moment right there.
And it's our choice totally to either talk to people or ignore them. And a lot of people just want to be talked to because they're in a prison, but it's just, you know, they feel like they're trapped by 9-to-5 jobs and the economy's bad and, you know, whatever the reason may be, so that, you know, if you just step outside of your box, so to speak, and then just talk to that person, and, you know, you'd be surprised what you find. So.
Very inspiring. I don't think I do enough. I really like my job, though. I really get the chance to talk to people, and I'm surprised at myself sometimes, because I will say things to people, and they just get such a look on their face like, wow, you know, what? You know, because there's one guy, I said, he came in and his wife was still out in the car, and then I was checking him out, and I said, is that your wife out in the car? And he's like, yeah, 42 years. And I said, she really loves you. I can see it in her face. And he says, wow, thank you. I can do stuff like that, so. Anyway.
Yeah, like there's another like I'm literally just kind of like pulling some individual quotes that I've picked up from Jake here and there, and I believe he will be joining us quite soon. I'm just talking to him online, so he's just getting himself settled in. So Jake will be joining us in the next couple minutes. But one thing that he talks about like is the idea that like the purpose of life is to give without expecting in return. You know, like that's like kind of like that big secret, like the more you give, the more you'll receive, kind of thing. So I mean, that's totally just like, and again, like you don't really know that until you try that, because like a lot of people are almost like scared. They're like scared to like give a part of themselves because they think that they're like giving away a part of themselves, like not realizing that like it's when you do that, when you like start doing that, that it actually like helps you like grow into like more of who you are, you know, like peeling back like those layers of an onion kind of thing. So, but yeah. There's an interesting thing. I was listening to a radio station this morning, and they were having a conversation of their own on it, and they were like asking people to like reflect like on the idea of when was the last time that someone like did something exceptionally like nice for you without expecting anything in return. And it was peculiar because like when people had to think about it, they were like drawing blanks. Which is like a really, you know, where it's just like really, like, come on, society, like, I mean, surely we must, like, there must be something that we're doing, and you know, people are like, be like, oh, well, there's like the odd time where like, you know, someone holds a door open for you, but like that doesn't totally count, right? So I mean, like, what's happening where people are sort of going through their day-to-day lives and they have like these bubbles around themselves that are preventing us from like really being able to like share each other, like share with each other, share who we are with each other, you know, like it just kind of reminds me of like that talking, like that scene out of Waking Life where they're talking about ants, and like there's like the girl, and she's like I don't want to just be another ant, you know, I want to be able to like know you, I want to see you, I want to like be with you, sort of thing. So, but yeah, until we sort of like drop, like part of it's like a fear thing, you know, like we don't even realize that like we're afraid, and we don't even know why we're afraid. It's so like backwards.
I think that there's two ways to work on a fear. Just, you know, work on with your mind and find what's opposite of it, and just going on being afraid, even if you are afraid, just do it anyways. If you know it's the right thing to do. So there's two ways on that. And so if you can go through something not being afraid and just do it, you just like wow, and the amazing things that happen. But if you are afraid and you do it anyways, and you're shaking and nervous, like coming on here, I was very nervous. You know, I re-listened to what I listened to last time, and I'm like, oh, well, I was not so bad. Just do it.
Yeah,
just do it, and you're gonna learn so much, and then the next time you're just gonna be so much more prepared and ready to do battle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then
totally.
you'll be able to spark or, you know, basically ignite that person, you know, by sharing, you know, just your true, authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the more... Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, just having the bravery, exactly, to be yourself, because you're the only you there is, and you're the only one that can be you. And if you just do it, I mean, I've had people in my life, I used to be really shy, and I used to be really closed in, and I've had people in my life that they said, in a way, you know, F it, you know, I'm going to be me. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. And the more I do, the more I like me. I like being around me, and I'm just going to be me whether somebody likes it or not. But then I get people that are like, wow, there's something about you. And I'm thinking, there's something about me. Is that something about you? It's the light. It's namaste. You know?
Right on.
Yeah, that was nice. That was good. Like that's what you said there. Totally. Yeah, and that's like we had a really good conversation the other day in our paradigm shift meeting. It's just super. Like yesterday's meeting was just like really fun but like the week before that it was like the full moon, and it was just a really different energy. But this week we were talking a lot about what it meant to be our authentic self and stuff. So it's just kind of interesting that here we are again. It sort of seems to be in that sort of collective subconscious, right, or not even like collective conscious right now. Like a lot of us are sort of reflecting on what does it mean to be our authentic self, like what does it mean to like pull back those layers of the onion. So I think we do have Jake on the line with us right now, and I just want to sort of just plug like a little quote here that I grabbed out of the book of his, and then we'll bring him on. And Jeff and sorry, caller, how do you say your name again? Valina. Valina. Okay.
Valina.
Very beautiful name. I like it. And sorry, Valina, are you are you from anywhere in particular? I'm just thinking like paradigm shift community wise, or just kind of here and there.
Oh, I wish there was one around here. I don't know. I just I found you through Spirit Science on online. And
True that. Cool. Well, remember, like part of this radio show and part of why like I'm really excited to have Jake on the show with us tonight is because like in the same way that we're all trying to like do something to make a change in this world. Like I want more people to be involved with like the paradigm shift movement in terms of not being afraid to take that first step to like create a paradigm shift community in your area, and to like really be excited about the people that you will meet, and understanding that those people that you're going to meet are already out there. It's just a matter of you like taking that first step outside your door, and like that's where the adventure begins. Like that's where like synchronicity has its moment to shine, sort of thing. So I totally encourage you, Valina, or anybody else to consider starting up a paradigm shift community in your area, and it's totally like an easy thing to do, and again we can like help you through the process. So facebook.com/paradigm shift central is the place to check that out. So Valina, I'll look yeah, I mean Jeff,
I was just seconding you. You should most definitely start one if you know. It'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you to quote Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, yeah. There we go. Oh,
Yeah. All right. So, Jeff, Valina, I'm gonna let you guys go for now, so you guys can just say farewell for now. But I mean, we will be bringing callers back onto the air later to like ask Jake questions. So if you guys want to call back in, that's cool. And we always got the Google Hangout afterwards. So,
All right.
thanks again, guys,
Right
for
on.
hanging out
Thanks,
with me in
Big
the
Skull.
meantime. All right. Talk to you later, guys. Cheers.
All right.
All right.
Take care. All right, so again, that's Valina and Jeff from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, Paradigm Shift Central, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. So I believe we have Jake on the line with us right here, and yep, he is here. And I just wanted to read a quote of his before we bring him on. And again, www.jakeducey.com is where you can find out the information for his book. And I ordered my book. I ordered his copy of the book today, so that's going to be arriving in the mail. But I've been reading a PDF version of it in the meantime. But I'm looking forward to having the physical copy in my hand. That'll be something I'll be able to like sit under a tree and read differently and share with my friends when the time comes. So a quote from Jake that I picked out of his book within the first 40 pages that I've read of it so far. He says, "I smiled, recognizing that the only way to break free is to realize that we already are all that we seek. We aren't separate from anything, not even our dreams. I only had to accept and love who I already was and not try to be something else. Then the whole world would unfold for me." So with that said, we're going to bring Jake Ducey on, 21-year-old best-selling author of Into the Wind, and check it out on Amazon. So Jake, if you're ready, we're going to bring you onto the air. Here we go. Hello, Jake.
Awesome. You know, it was so... Hear me here?
Yeah, we can hear you, dude.
You speaking about peeling away the layers of the onion, and, you know, that I think the paradox of that is the layers really of the onion of ourselves aren't really us at all. That, you know, we think that one thing's a risk or that something else is not for the way that we're living our lives, but really everything is a risk. And what's more dangerous than to accept a false version of ourselves, of our desires, of what's possible? And that really what I realized for myself is that all of these onions weren't really me for the way that I could live, the way that I could go in my life in terms of what we can study, you can or can't study, what's wrong, what's right. And I realized that most of us, you know, we're gambling on the biggest risk of all, and that's the bet that we're going to buy the freedom to do what we want later in life after we made money, after we pleased enough people.
Yeah, man. For sure. And that's what totally, like, you made that choice to like not sit around waiting. Like you went out and you followed that dream, man. You went right into the wind. Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Paradigm Shift Radio. It's a pleasure to have you on the air with us.
Oh, that's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for creating an awesome space, man. Especially even the title.
Yeah, sorry. I think your phone was sort of cutting out there a bit. It might just be a momentary thing, but yeah, just giving you a heads up on that. I'll let you know if it happens again. But yeah, so Jake, let me. I did sort of set up a preface of like what your book is, just sort of talking about, you know, a bit about like your history and sort of you having to deal with your own struggles and then leaving you know that life behind and going out there and going to Guatemala is where you began your journey, and that is where you synchronistically ran into a shaman very early into being there, which is I was mentioning I've started reading the book and I've gotten to the end of the chapter where you meet that shaman and he finishes sort of having that moment with you where he, as you explain, you know, he sort of like shattered away like those pieces of like of yourself to sort of like see who you were, and that's when you sort of realize that your purpose was to tell the story of your transformation, knowing that like your transformation is like the transformation that like consciousness itself is going through. So Jake, I just to sort of set you up, like tell us more about what this book is in your own words. Like what's the value of it for the people who are going to read it?
The value of the book is that if I can do
Sorry, say that, Jake. Say that again. I think there's chopping out there.
Is it me that's choppy here?
Like it might not be a consistent thing. So like just keep talking, and I'll let you know if it's happening again.
Okay. The value of my story or of any other human being's story on Earth is that if I can do it, you can do it too. Is that I had a dream. My dream was to share this message. My excuses were that I didn't go to college and I didn't learn how to write. I did not pass my normal junior English class in high school. I was denied by a myriad of literary agents for this and for that, and I'm only this age, I'm only this, I'm only that, and what you're going to get out of the book is that the only thing that's stopping you is yourself, that you become unstoppable the moment that you quit stopping yourself.
Yeah, totally. Like we ourselves are we can be like our hero, but we can also be like our villain, sort of in that sense. But yeah, like those obstacles are just there to make us stronger and be able to help figure out more of who we are. So Jake, I'd just like you to be able to like share with us more about the experience that this journey was. I mean, not to sort of literally just like retell the story, but I mean, yeah, can you just sort of like explain more about like what you sort of experienced while out on your journey? Like, I mean, I haven't, being conscious of like spoilers and stuff, because I want people to be able to enjoy it like when they read it the first time. But yeah, just tell us more about like the adventures that you sort of came across on your journeys. Sorry, Jake, can you still hear us? Sorry, Jake, can you hear us? Okay, yeah, so Jake just dropped there. He'll be able to call back in, I presume. But yeah, let me just see if I can find another quote here based on what he was talking about. And the true person. Yeah, here's like I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this was his quote. Like he's got like several quotes within his book of like compilations of like other quotes from like other people, of some of like the most inspiring authors that he's and other like people that he sort of looked up to. But this one that I sort of copied and pasted, it says, "The purpose is the true love for life, being a willing instrument for a task reorganized by each one of us as a significant one for the highest good of all." So that sort of talks about the idea that like as consciousness itself, like we are here to wake ourselves up. So if we can like focus in on like who we really are, then it allows us to be like more of a fountain of like love and givingness of others, to be able to like, that's where it's sort of talking about like this highest good for all. So sorry, I'm just kind of reading two things here. I'm not sure what's yeah, so Jake, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but I think Jake's going to try calling in through Skype, so just give me 1 second here. I just got to talk in 2 seconds. Calling in through Skype. This is Skype icon on the Blog Talk page. So cool. And guys, if you have any questions for Jake, please feel free to message us in the live chat. So on the right side of those of you in the live chat, you'll see all the names, and there's one for Paradigm Shift Radio up at the top, and right click on that and shoot us a question, because I would love to hear from some people who have actually read Jake's book and might have something in particular that they want to be able to talk to him about. So Jake's just getting some things figured out technical wise, which will in the long run be the best for us to be able to communicate with him properly. But yeah, let me just sort of see what other stuff. Yeah. One thing that's actually kind of funny, at the beginning of his book, like within like just like the first couple paragraphs, like some books have like disclaimers, where they're talking about like like all the thoughts in this book are like of the author alone and do not represent like the publisher or something like that. Whereas Jake, he sort of wrote in the beginning, and he says like, "I have no disclaimer. By reading this book, you will become aware that you are the creator of your own life, intentionally or unintentionally." So that was a really like interesting thing that caught my attention, like the idea of us being the creator of our own life intentionally or
unintentionally, because that's like what this big paradigm shift is like realizing like how much our thoughts actually create. And then not only that, but also being able to share a testament for the experiences that each of us have had, which is really what Jake's book is about. In one way that I sort of see it is that it is a very good testament of like an example that someone has lived who has documented the synchronicity that has unfolded in front of them. And all of us are going through that within our daily lives, but not all of us are like always like documenting it, so we don't always like really tell each other about it. But the synchronicities are happening, and the synchronicities are those things where the universe sort of just happens to put you in the right place at the right time, or it pushes you in a certain direction, or something happens that causes you to change course, but because you change course, you like end up where you need to be, and you meet that person who's really going to be able to like communicate that message back to you. So like in Jake's circumstance, one of the things is that he when he lands in Guatemala, there's like 3 different places that he goes to where they're trying to like find a place to sleep for the night, or like trying to find like food in a restaurant and stuff. And then they end up like going to the first couple places, and they sort of it doesn't work in those places, and then they end up going to like this third place, and then in the third place there's like this nice kind woman, and she like welcomes them in and gives them food and stuff. And then there they see like an advertisement for like a shaman, and then they're like, do you know this shaman? And she's like, oh, that's actually like my son, like I can get him for you, like hold on one second. And so then like that's actually like the shaman who Jake actually like meets early on into the book. And I mean, it's explained in the book, like the shaman, I mean, when people think shaman, you know, like shaman is the person who is like attuned to a lot of like the subtle energies that many people often overlook. And in this case, like shaman does not by any means refer to like any sort of like additional plant medicines, or you know, you think of things like an ayahuasca shaman or something like that. Like not by any means does that like does a shaman have to be using any sort of like the medicines. Like the medicine that they can just be using is simply just like even like hands-on touch. Like, you know, like a shaman can have a very powerful influence on somebody simply by placing their hand like on a part of their body, like, you know, like putting their hand on their head and then sort of like opening parts of like their, you know, just awakening parts of their energy, and just really connecting with that person in a different way. So yeah, I mean, that was just kind of like another part of the story that sort of like relates to the idea of Jake sort of documenting like the synchronicities that unfold. And that's like where I'm sort of reading the book from, because it's really interesting. And we will I'd love to hear more about those synchronicities that Jake has to share with us. But like I said, right now, I mean, he's working on the technical things on his end. So in the meantime, I'm just kind of not killing time, because I do have some things that I can share with you guys. And one thing that I was going to share with you was my own synchronicity story, which actually sort of like segues this nicely. So I mean, like, technical difficulties aside, like, this is still like Paradigm Shift Radio, and we adapt and overcome, and things are still where they are in order to get to where they need to be. And you know, don't fret, like Jake will be here. But in the meantime, like, here's a cool story about how we have the magic to program our own reality, pretty much, is something that I try to reiterate every once in a while to you guys. And that includes like physically writing things down, and the idea that like through the act of writing things down, it actually like it brings something into this reality with a little bit more oomph, so to speak, like with a little bit more like something that reality can bounce itself off of and give it a little bit more extra energy. So things like symbols and stuff. So many of you, hold on, let me just get some water here. I've been talking for like 10 minutes straight before I tell this story. 1 second, guys. And of course, guys, please continue to share the show. If you haven't yet, for whatever reason, please continue to share the show out there. So many of you already know this. You've heard me talk about the number 96. Like 96 is like my resonating number. I have it tattooed on my wrist, among other things. And it was something that when I was out in Vancouver a few years ago, like I just started drawing it, and it sort of came out of you know, an altercation of the yin yang symbol. So I started drawing that, and then I just sort of like, you know, what happens if I sort of like take the yin yang and move it around? I'm like, hey, it kind of looks like a 96. And I'm like, okay, what if I sort of like simplify it a bit? And then I'm like, hey, that looks really cool if it were like be on my wrist. So eventually I like got it tattooed there, but then understanding that it was like a symbol that I was putting intention into. And there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I mean, you can look at it as like the yin yang. You can look at it as like as above, so below. You can look at it as like intention in and purpose out. There's a lot of like layers and complexity to it. one of the ways that it works for me is like, since I've sort of like programmed it, is that it can actually be there as a sign for the universe to show me when I'm on the right path, when like things are synchronistically sort of like aligned for where I'm going, if there's like some sort of lesson in front of me. And so what happened last night, and I'm just going to tell this real quick and then we're bringing Jake back on. What happened last night, I was explaining this to my friend, the idea that like if I see 9-6, like it's a good like sort of omen sort of thing, and it happens to me kind of beyond my control, and it's always something that I'm not looking for, but I'll just sort of like intuitively get drawn to. So for example, like I'll be like getting off a bus and a bunch of cars will be going by, and then I'll just look towards one license plate and it'll be like 9-6 or 6-9. So what happened, and as I was explaining this to my friend, I was like explaining literally what I just told you. We were leaving the house in my buddy's car and he was driving, and then like we pulled out of the driveway, and then like the first license plate that we saw had 9-6 in it, and I was like, hey, look, see, there it is, right? And then we like went, and then like the next license plate that we saw, like that both of us looked at, I had 9-6 on it too, and I was like, oh like, you know, crap, there's another one. Like I told you, like, you know, universe is just like like having a laugh with us right now. And then we drove to the end of the street like less than like 5 seconds later, and then like the house at the end of the street was like 693, and I was just like, yo, there's another one. And then like as I was pointing and like laughing at the house, a taxi drove by us, and the taxi had like the light, like the cab number was 469. So within like literally like 10 seconds, like the universe just threw, like, it was like I was, you know, like I was talking about 9-6s and like these resonating numbers, and then the universe was like, yeah, you want to prove it, you want to see it for yourself, like here you go. But like it wasn't just for me, it was the fact that my friend got to see it as well, and I was like, oh, I was so happy that you got to see that. And he's like, yeah, man, me too. Like that was just like beyond crazy. And my other friends can testify to that too. Like we'll be just it happens all the time, but it's really cool. So that's just going back to the idea that we can program our own reality. So anybody else is welcome to use the number 9-6 as well. A lot of people sort of think about the idea of 11-11, and that's the same concept. It's the same idea. So the idea that like those symbols are there for the universe to be able to communicate to itself, to help wake itself up and help it move forward on its path. So with that said, Jake, I'm going to bring you back onto the air, and we'll continue the conversation. So I don't think it's on Skype. I think we're just on regular phone, which is totally cool as well. So Jake, if you're ready, we're going to bring you right back on. Here we go. Hey, Jake.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Like we can hear you. Like last time you were talking, it was okay. So.
Okay. So my story is essentially like many of you.
Sorry.
My story is like you listening, in that we've all heard that we can do anything, that anything's possible, and that literally anything inside of our imagination we can create as our reality. But that there's a distinct difference between truly living that and simply just learning it. And I realized that I had to spend my whole life learning it. I was aware of the possibilities. I was aware of what had existed. And while I sat inside my desk in my classroom my freshman year in college, I was simply that. I was aware of these possibilities, aware of what we can do, aware of the fact that a football field size of the rainforest is destroyed every second, that we are right now in need to change our world. In 100 years, it's not going to exist unless we create change. And on the complete same end of that we can do anything. And I said, well, if this is true, if our thoughts create our lives, if we can do anything, if we're more than our past, then I want to share this message. And so I want to see if this is real. So my journey was that I decided that I would quit school. I would call my mom and I'd tell her that, hey, Mom, I just quit school, and I just quit basketball, and I'm going to quit school. And like many of you that may be listening to this, we're scared of the approval of what the world wants us to do and how our parents want us to act and how institutions or your job or your friends, or what are they going to think of me, or who's going to think of this, who's going to think of that. But really, when it's all said and done, I realize that the only thing that actually matters is what you think of yourself. And a lot of us say that, but how many of us are truly living that way? And I realized I wasn't, and so I had to leave, and so I decided to start my journey in Guatemala. So I took my savings, bought a plane, left school, and decided to embark on this journey to really see what I was made of and what was inside of me, rather than just telling myself what was available. And the first thing that you realize when you're in this part of the world is that it's absolutely true. There are people, there's little kids that are sitting out there that have holes in their shoes, that wore the same clothes the day before, and then they're sitting there smiling at me at 7 in the morning every day, and you're like, you think maybe they're laughing at you because you have something on your face or something, and they're just laughing because they're alive. That you don't need anything in order to fulfill you. You know, this is the show Paradigm Shift. That the paradigm shifts when we realize that there's nothing that we need outside of ourselves. And so I saw these children like that living there, laughing as if they had everything. And I think the quote that you put at the beginning of the book, the beginning of when I came onto the show, was about basically how smiling on anything. And so I saw that we can tell our story, and I could tell myself that I had been depressed, or I had been using this, or I had been using that, or my life had only gotten me this far to this place. But at any moment, I could just smile, and I could see the power that I have, the power that's available here right now. And see it happening from children was a magnificent thing. And while I was strolling on these streets around town is when I did meet this shaman of which you spoke of, this man, just a man just like anyone else. And, you know, you asked about what can somebody get out of my story, out of my book. It's that you can see yourself in it, because we've all been through this journey of trying to conform to the world, and it doesn't work. And what you see is maybe you haven't traveled around the world, maybe you haven't even been outside of your hometown, but we're all experiencing the same lessons, man, and we're all learning the same things. And this man revealed that to me. He revealed that to me, that there's this power that's within us that we've never been told that exists, and that we've been too scared to tap into because we're so concerned about what the world thinks, and I was so concerned about how people would think of me if I talked about this. And that this man said to me that we're more powerful than we've been led to believe. He said that when you know this and when you remember this, that's how the world changed. So I found myself sitting on the floor with this man crying on the ground as he told me everything about my life, about my past, about my story of which I thought for so long could limit me from sharing my gifts to the world, my story of being somebody who had flipped their car 4 times 400 feet down a ravine one night while I was drunk. And he revealed all these layers of excuses that held me back from who I was, my own potential, my own power. And so they just sat there on the floor, and I asked myself, what have you been waiting for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what you said, the idea that people can see themselves in this story, like that's totally what I got, and that's where, like, while I was reading it, that's what really drew me in, is that it's cool that, like, you know, this story is about Jake Ducey, but when you're reading it, like, you are the experiencer, like you are sort of like going what through you are going through, and you can really invest yourself emotionally in what it is that you learn. And that's where, like, I can understand why some people talk about when they read this book, they'll sort of like pick it up and literally like finish it within like a first sitting, or, you know, like just really want to like continue getting into it. Like it's really like, it's like reminding me of kind of like an old like graphic novel, or just because it's got like that adventure feel to it, you know, like you really don't know like what's around the next corner, because you didn't know what was around the next corner. Like you had sort of like broad objectives of like going to like Australia in Asia, but then what would meet you there would totally just be like a surprise, but like a welcomed gift from the universe, because of like the attitude that you were carrying. And it was because of that attitude that you're able to just like really like get the most out of it, which is like super cool, man. Like later on in the book, I mean, I haven't got there yet, but like that's what happens, right? You go to Asia and you go to Australia. Is that sort of where you go?
I want to share with everyone listening, when, you know, what I realized is that I traveled around the world. I thought I was going to find something in space and time with my eyes, or, you know, with my taste buds, or with my sense of smell, that was going to bring me to this state of realization of who I was. And so this journey led me all the way through Australia to Indonesia, where I was on the outskirts of civilization, having lost my bank cards, and was taken in by a family. And while we were out there on the outskirts of civilization, I fell off a cliff, and I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. While I was falling, a voice said in my head, "Will you regret your whole life?" And I said back to it that I wouldn't, because I was doing what I wanted, and I was doing what I love. And as soon as I hit the ground, a man jumped off after me, and I sat there crying on the ground. And I was crying because somebody that I didn't even know was demonstrating such belief in what they stood for, which for him was friendship, which for him was freedom, which for him was family, that he was willing to risk his own life. And long story short, they saved my life. And while I found myself on the bed that night, having not broken a bone in my body, I realized that I had traveled around the whole world, only to find that right now, regardless of what the world was like, what my situation was like, what your circumstances are like, your savings, how your friends are viewing you, how your day was, that you can look in the mirror and you can, as funny as it sounds, be thankful for who you are and the gifts that you have, that you don't need to go around the world to find opportunity, because the greatest opportunity is going to find you. You don't need to go anywhere in order to create change in the world. And I realized all this, that all the leaves fall from the tree. After I fell off this cliff, I went into silent meditation in a monastery in Thailand and realized I didn't need to go to the world anymore to find anything. And on my last day of silent meditation, this monk said to me, "All leaves fall from the tree, old and young, when the wind blows. Would you be satisfied right now with where you are in your life if the wind blew you off the tree?"
Yeah, I mean, that's something for all of us sort of like reflect upon. Because, I mean, ideally, we do want to be able to like say that, like, yes, we are happy. And, you know, like, I think that for a lot of people, like, that can take, it's a life process. You know, it doesn't really like happen like just overnight. But I mean, yeah, it is something that a lot of people take time to transition into, and to know that like that's really what we're trying to work towards. Like what you talk about, it's not building up the material things, because none of that is something that we can take with us. Like what we take with us are like is like the love and like the relationships that we shared with people. Like that's what it, you know, that's what it comes down to. So Yeah. Go ahead.
Listener out there, if they think it's possible that right now that they can be totally free of whatever had held them back up until now, that right now they can be totally free of their worries, of their past, and right now that they don't need to go on a process in order to find themselves and be happy. Is it possible that right now you can just feel that? And that's what I realized after I fell off this cliff, that this was possible. And so in the book, I invite you on this journey to realizing that.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing that it was funny because like when I was just doing some notes on your book, and I was like taking some stuff down in just like in a text document on my computer, I typed out the title and I typed out like Into the Wind, but then like my reflex or something like added an extra O onto the end as if I was like starting to spell the word window. And then like that totally just like made me think for a second. I'm like, wait a second, like that's what this is about too. It's about being able to like know that there are like these windows of opportunity that the universe like has like in front of us, like windows, doors, like whatever metaphor sort of makes sense for you. And those are sort of like those synchronistic moments that we sort of talk about, like those moments where like you'll meet that right person who will be able to teach you more about yourself, who will be able to help you take back like some of those layers of the onion. So I mean that's something that I just really like to encourage, is that like these windows of opportunity are always there. And if we're willing to sort of like see them and really just willing to like jump into them, like that's where we sort of like really get into like those exciting aspects of our life that just go against storm the norm kind of thing. But I don't know if you had like any sort of response on that, like windows and wind, like just what does wind mean in itself, right?
And the beautiful thing about that is that you just realize it now, and I had to go around the world to realize that.
Hey man, I would love to get around to a couple other continents myself, like I totally, and I think that's where, what you did is something that a lot of people wish, I'm not saying that, they're making excuses, but at the same time, like the idea of just like dropping something and just going out there and seeing what the universe has to offer you, and this is what you're saying, like all of us can do that. I mean, yes, there is like, put aside some money if you're actually thinking about doing it, but yeah, like there's so many like amazing places out there with so much amazing culture, and especially where you start like meeting a lot of like the local villagers, and you just realize that like their culture and their way of life is just so radically different from like this Western society that we're in, and there's just like this genuine humility to all the people there, and then really just like this sense of like family that really just makes you sort of reflect on like what it is that you value like within your lifetime. So Jake, I would love to hear like what are some of the other outstanding synchronicities that happened to you on your journey? So many. Go ahead.
It's a funny question because the entirety of what Into the Wind means is to be open to those synchronicities, and that's what we're all being called to do. And when I did this personally, one of the things that comes to me immediately is when I entered Indonesia and I had lost all my bank cards and I had no money, and a man basically took me in, and he came over to me in Kuta in Indonesia. It's concrete shacks stacked up on top of each other, and there's motorcycles that zoom around into the center of Kuta Bali Square, and basically it's where all the locals, 70% of Indonesians, make their living off tourism. They all sit here while all the tourists walk by and they're looking to buy things, and the people are trying to sell them stuff. Well, I entered this place without any, I had lost all my bank cards, and so this man, local man, Indonesian man named Rudy, tried to get me to buy something, and I informed him, hey man, I lost everything. I don't have my bank cards, and he just started laughing at me. And have you ever had a time before where you've looked into somebody's eyes and it was like you already knew them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, me personally, yeah. I mean, in the same way yeah.
So, yes. So I had one of these situations, and this man came to me and he said, "Rudy gonna take care of you. Rudy gonna take care of you." So I said, "Get on my motorcycle." And I got onto his motorcycle, and we drove away outside of the civilization, the tourist area, where everyone was stopping to look at what's this white kid doing here. And we went back into these places, concrete shacks, essentially, about 5 feet high, 5 feet long, 5 feet wide, concrete one after another, be more or less what you would call kind of a third world apartment complex. And he took me back into this area. And we kept walking, and all these kids are running after me, and they've never seen this before. And he says, "This is my house," and there's just one after another, and we're through this little concrete alleyway, and he opens the blanket. You know, in the Western world, we'd have a front door, and he had a blanket. And I said, "This is my house," with this huge smile on his face. And then, I'm thinking maybe it's, like the front porch where, like, he's going to put where I put my shoes or something like that. And he says, "No, this is my house. This is where me, my 3 kids, my wife and I, this is where we sleep." And then he turns to me, and he sticks his hand in his pocket, and he looks up at me, and I see he has rupiah, Indonesian rupiah. It's the paper currency there. And I see he has about, like, $8 or so, and he says to me, "Here, I want you to have this. I want you to get a phone to call America. I want you to be provided for." I said, "Rudy's going to take care of you." And I looked him in the eyes. I said, "Why?" He said, "This is what I have for my family, and I want you to have it. That war will be okay." And so he just gave me all of his money. And I got a phone, and I called America, and I had a wire transfer set up, and the next 2 weeks I spent sitting on the curbs with these guys talking about life and just seeing how they live on a momentary basis, that they have no conceptualization of the future, that it's just right here, right now, with only what exists, and that they have no need to try to create for a future when they could just live it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a wire transfer after a few weeks, and I think I'm going to be this big hero that's going to come back to them, and I think I'm going to give them all this money, and I want to give them like $250, and that's like 4, 5, 6 years worth of money. That's a serious amount of money to them. And I walk over to him and I say, "Rudy, I want to give you this." And he looks at me, and I hand it to him, and he gives it back to me, and he says, "I don't want your money." And he says, "The purpose of life is giving without expecting return." The purpose of life is without expecting return. And the most beautiful synchronicities, those happen when we're willing to do that. Doesn't mean you need to necessarily give something. But what about giving up our ideas about how things are supposed to be? Or giving up the story about how it's always been, or the reasons why we can't do something new or do something different. So this man said to me, this question I always ask is what else is the purpose of life to give without expecting return?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, man. Like I was talking about, I did mention that I think before you were like cued into the show, like the idea of like, yeah, the purpose of life is to give without nothing expected in return, and that the magic of it all is that like the more you give, the more you receive, just not in the way that we've traditionally been
thought to expect that, like, you know, receiving means, because I mean, yeah, it's obviously not about like money and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really cool, man. Like that's awesome. And I know part of your story, since you've been home, Jake, is that you've been doing what you can to help out with children in other parts of the world. So I'm sure, can you tell us a bit more about that, like how you've been inspired to be that change that you wish to see?
Yeah, and then, well, when I was with this shaman, he actually knew we were coming before I got there, and he had created an outline for, and essentially, it's hard to define it in our Western words, but essentially it's an orphanage school type of structure, but it's teaching them their ways, their Mayan heritage. Is that what you realize is that we have so many people that are so deeply below the poverty line that they give up their roots in order to just grab at what they can grab at. And so the school is about reconnecting them. And so this Fernando, the shaman, told me that I was going to be helping the children, and I was soon to find out that 3 days before I got there, he had already finished this outline. He had already created this outline. And so my brother and I raised the money in order to put at this orphanage and put these kids into essentially school, which is, you know, as I explained, it's a different methodology of school. However, it is to them, it's putting them back into their power, which had been taken from them through the way that the system is set up, specifically in Guatemala, in that they had a civil war, and basically government troops went and raided and pillaged the areas, and Fernando the shaman, all of his cousins and brothers and sisters were all killed, and he found his power because he was actually thrown into a hole in the ground lined with corpses, and was in there for a week without food and water, and when he was like 10, and that's when he connected with what they call Dios, God. And so this school is about teaching them his methodology of, which is for them Quechua Mayan, how to reconnect with that. So we built this school, and he had one brother whom didn't pass away in this, and his brother's name's Edwin, and Edwin recently had a child whose name is Jake, and that's my godson. So his name's Jake Oxlack Gomez, and they call him the Gringo de Guatemala Teca. So it's something that, you know, speaking of children, it's not something that I usually, I guess we don't really go into that personal of it, but this seems like it's kind of like a hangout chat type thing like this, which is cool. I have my ear up on my desk right now. Yeah, man. What I think what's so funny is that we talk about we're service to other people, but it's this whole two-sided coin, and the whole paradox of service is that it actually is serving ourselves. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna give this person this food, this homeless person, or I'm gonna give this kid who's never been to school, I'm gonna get him a textbook. And I'm receiving this whole other thing back to it, and I guess that's the whole thing is receiving and giving, as you were speaking of.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I'm just trying to think of some other stuff we can sort of jump into in terms of this story. One thing that you talk about in your videos is just the idea of people really being able to just change their perspective on the world around them, to be able to acknowledge the overwhelming beauty that we are surrounded by, and I sort of had a moment for myself like that today, where I was on my way to go to like a local coffee shop to do some reading of your book. But before I got there, I like went to the woods first, and I went into the forest, into a place I usually go, and I just like sat down and I meditated there for a while. And I just, while I was there, I just took an extra moment to really just like look and just be in awe of like how incredibly beautiful like the place that I was in. Like it was just, and I mean it was nothing I had seen before. Like that's my point, right? Like I was just looking at a tree. Like we have trees all around us and stuff, but I was just like there is just like so much like, this world is overflowing with beauty. And it's so easy for so many of us to just like look past it, but where we are right now, and to actually quote the shaman that you're with, Fernando, I'm just trying to find, sorry, where is it? 2 seconds here. I'm just sort of scrolling through my thing. Like he talks about, so he actually says like that when he was talking to you, when you're going through like that first that meeting with him, and he was, you know, communicating to you with your translator, and he says like, we are entering the age of great remembrance, where many will recall their true nature and powers. The age of great forgetting is almost finished for humanity. Like, I think that's totally, the fact that he recognizes that and he says that, like, from where he is in his part of the world, like, and he's in sync with, like, this whole, like, collective consciousness, the shifting thing that's sort of happening. Like what does that mean for you? Like, the idea of, like, we are entering the age of great remembrance, and kind of going back to, like, the Dios thing.
We jumped around on a few things, and I think first,
go ahead, yeah.
To me, it's not a perspective to see the beauty. It's dropping a perspective, and just
what's preventing us from seeing it? Yeah,
and just dropping it, and just, is it possible like to be like a dog and just say 1, 2, 3, drop it? And that's what freedom is beyond the perspective, and that, man, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we're alive. We're on this little rock, flying through space. We know of no other planets and worlds that have these human beings that are here, and we go to sleep every night, and our body keeps breathing, and it keeps us alive, and our food digests ourselves. That, man, it's seriously a miracle that these things are happening, and that we over, because we want to have a perspective on everything. And when we can actually, in my view, it's not a perspective to see these beauties. It's not about changing the perspective, because it's just, I guess, clearing the windows of which you spoke of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, removing the dust off the mirror of our mind and our heart is a quote that I've actually sort of picked up from somewhere else, but yeah. Sorry, Jake, did you have more? Go ahead.
That is essentially what it means to be in the age of great remembrance. We're remembering this gift, what it is to be alive, and that I can be here. I'm talking to you through this, like, internet transmitter thing that we can reach 500 million people. Justin Bieber reaches like people. We laugh, but think about it. He can reach 500 million people in 24 hours. Yeah. And the age of remembrance is remembering that we can do that too. That you can you have the same capabilities to reach more than that. There's 8 billion people in the world. You can reach 8 billion people in the world in a week, for sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done before. And the age of great remembrance is when we ask ourselves, what do you want the world to know? What do I want the world to know? And how can I take the steps there? What do you want the world to know? What do I want the world to know? And how can I begin today? When we start asking these questions, that's what it means to be in the age of great remembrance. That, you know, we're talking about revolution, and that you're the one, I'm the one that we've all been waiting for the whole time. And that's what it means. That's what the age of great remembrance means, is that literally Mother Teresa and Gandhi and all these people are not any more than any of us. It's when we remember that Martin Luther King, when he's saying, "I've been to the mountaintop," the age of great remembrance is remembering that the mountaintop is an esoteric and etheric dimension. It's not any place except for within you. The age of great remembrance is remembering that the mountaintop is within us. Martin Luther King knew the mountaintop is within me, and when you know that, then regardless of the circumstances, regardless in his situations of people even wanting to kill him, and he knowing that people wanted to kill him, the age of great remembrance is knowing that the mountaintop, when you're tapped in to your own power, to your own will to serve the world, that nothing can stop you. That's what the age of great remembrance means. And that we have right here all the ways that we can do, man, to reach as many people as possible if we quit telling ourselves a story that it's not possible. That's what the age of great remembrance is.
Mm-hmm. Totally, man. Well, I'd love to be able to just use, I mean, right now we're actually at 12:32, so there's actually only 30 minutes left in the show, but I'd like to be able to really just like make the most of it and work with like the potency of this conversation. I'll just ask though, Jake, did you want to sort of lead us through like some sort of meditation? I mean, normally we sort of like have an audio track that we could play, but maybe, I mean, if you're familiar with something, we could like, you could just sort of do like a leading us through like a guided meditation verbally or something. Did you want to do something like that at some point?
What I would love is that if anyone has questions too, if anyone has those, and right now that is for me. If there are questions and there's that's for me the funnest thing.
For sure,
and
for sure.
We can go with where we're at right now because it's pretty powerful to realize that you can reach 8 billion people in the world, and that the age of great remembrance is remembering that there's 8 billion Martin Luther Kings and Gandhis and Mother Teresas and Steve Jobs out here right now.
Yeah, all those faces. Well, people, for those of you listening into the show and those of you in the live chat, this would be your moment to please drop us some questions that you guys have for either Jake or, I mean, more so for Jake, not necessarily for me, and message us in the live chat or actually call in. I mean, we do have the option to be able to use the technology we have to talk with each other verbally on air. So if you haven't thought of it yet but are still like considering doing it, please take another second and find a question for Jake and then call into the show at, hold on, I've got like my things like sort of glitching out here. You guys know what the number is to call into the show. It's something, hold on 2 seconds. Okay, the number to call into the show for those of you listening, but you're already in Blog Talk anyways, it's 347-539-5493, and we'd love to get some more people on the air with us, with Jake here. And yeah, like Jake, there's just one thing that I was particularly interested in, because I'm not really sure if it came up more in the book, but it just sort of like caught my attention as well. And I mentioned it earlier in the show, like it was a relationship between like you and your grandfather, and just like how much of an influence that had on you. Like there may be like more of a story to that, there may not be, but I was just sort of wondering, I mean, is there anything that you can sort of like share with us about like how influential it was for you to have your grandfather telling you at a young age that you actually are like capable of creating realities and stuff like that? I mean, that really set you on your path.
You're talking about like in the preface of the book.
Yeah, like barely mentioned, but that really like was something that got my attention. So.
Okay, cool. I didn't catch you at first. I appreciate that you caught that. Yeah. So my grandpa, he was so poor growing up that actually they lived near the docks. And my grandpa, he would actually eat out of the trash can from what the fishermen would leave after and like throw over and stuff like that. And he was making more money than his father was when he was 12 or 15 years old, not out of pride or anything, but because they didn't have anything. He had to do that. He had to do that in order to survive. And he stands here today still, having 4 kids that have all realized their own dreams, my mother, my aunts, my uncles. And what that story tells me is that anything's possible, man, is that there's something deeper within us that can take us through anything. That regardless of how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. That affirmation, how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. And my grandfather showed me that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I mean, that was just something that did catch my attention, just because, I mean, I know for me personally, like, yeah, like, my grandfather was, like, a very influential person for myself growing up as well, and I would love to, you know, just sort of just, like, looking ahead in some years from now, you know, just for those of us, for when we have our own grandchildren, you know, just to never really forget, to be able to, like, plant those seeds at a young age, and how much of an influence it can make, and not even just with, like, you know, us being a grandfather and having grandchildren, but just even the impact that we can make working with kids, and just being able to, like, have that positive influence on them as a role model when they're nice and young, and really just like open to these empowering thought patterns. So, Jake, some of the questions that are coming in through the live chat, people are wondering, what is it that you're actively doing now in terms of, like, being the change that you want to see? Like, are you still working with the school and so forth?
Can you please say that again?
Just what is it that you're actively doing now to, like, help make this world a better place?
What am I actually doing right now? Exist.
Yeah. Sharing
right now,
your story. Yeah. Smiling.
I'm very sitting on a radio call, sharing that we can do anything. At this very moment, I have a book that has 104 reviews on Amazon. 103 of them are 5 stars, writing about it changing people's lives. And I'm giving a percentage of this to continue to put children around the world in school. So I'd say that to so far as I make it an intention to make sure that the cashiers, wherever I go to buy something, that they, when I walk away, that I made their day better. Mm-hmm. That you don't need to, like, have this giant purpose. That all you need to do is, like, dude, just make the cashier smile. Like, how many of us, like, are really doing that, because we're, like, so caught up in this and that. And so to be in the world, I make a conscious effort, and I take pride in the fact that sometimes I have to walk really fast through the supermarket because every single person there knows my name now that works there. So I answer that question.
Yeah, like, maybe, Jake, do you want to sort of, because I know you sort of, like, talked about it in one of your videos, do you want to sort of, like, walk us through, like, a quick, like, smiling exercise kind of thing?
So, background. In the 70s, they did a study at Berkeley, and they took clinically depressed patients. So, you know, first, what does it mean to be clinically depressed? It means you've told a story that you're depressed for so long, and then you've identified with it, and you said, this is who I am. And they've done, not to say that they probably feel very bad, but that it's just a story. And to prove that it's just a story, they took 20 of these clinically depressed patients, and the only thing they had them do, the psychologist at Berkeley just had them look in the mirror for 20 minutes and smile in the morning and at night. That's the only thing they had them do. And that's it. Smile in the morning and at night, and all of their symptoms of depression went away. So my smiling exercises, we live in a world where it's strange to smile at the door, to smile while you're walking around. So we've been conditioned not to do it. And we don't get what we want, we get what we are. We get what we are, meaning that we get, you know, the habitual energy, vibration that we're transmitting. So in the morning when I wake up, I lie in my bed for 5 minutes and I just smile. I just start my day with smiling. if you want me to walk you through an exercise, if I was with you, I would say to you, and I can do this now, is just smile, man. Like, smile is exaggerate a smile on your face. So you can smile right now. And when you're smiling like that, take a deep breath and go beyond your mind and the story about yourself smiling about this happening, and just feel the energy shift, how your emotions improved, and know that you created that I didn't create that your circumstance didn't create that was your choice to smile, your choice, not mine. And when you remember that, that's the mountaintop that Martin Luther King is talking about, is that at all times you have this choice to be okay, to know that your identity your value isn't going to be lost in any circumstance, in any situation. And so I invite you to smile because of that.
Yeah, like I don't know if the people listening can hear me smiling, but I am smiling. So yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, like, I mean, the exercise is simple. You're right. Just like close your eyes and smile. I mean, like, yeah, like, and mean it too. I mean, it might start off where you're just like flexing your muscles and everything, but I mean, the moment you actually do it, you're just like, wait a second, like there's something chemical that's going on. Like, this feels good, you know. And then, like you said, take that breath into it, and it sort of helps align with that, and then bring that out into the world with us. Like, there's a good quote by Rumi. And I posted it on my wall today, and it's actually the quote that you used in your book as well. And it says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." So I think that is a bang on quote, man. Like, do you maybe want to say about anything more that you want to say about that quote in itself? I mean, you chose that quote for a reason, eh?
Yeah, man. We don't need anything in order to just turn our face up and smile, except for our own choice. That's it. And I want to, Kristen just added to me on Facebook and sent me a message and said, listening to your talk right now, and if you get this, I want you to talk about how you just get up and leave your life and go. How did you do it?
Kristen, go ahead, yeah.
Everything is a risk. It's a risk to stay where we are right now in our life, and it's a risk to like step into the unknown, into like leave behind our life. That's a risk too. And we live in a world where we think that only one thing is a risk. We think like, well, I'm going to have safety, you know, and this other thing is a risk. But here, I'm safe. I know it exists. But, you know, what's more dangerous? You know, what's more dangerous than to give up what you don't know? And so oftentimes we get stopped. How did you do it? I realize that every single thing in life is a risk, and that there's not one thing is a risk and one thing isn't. I realized everything was a risk, and then when I came to this realization, I asked myself, what has the highest reward? What has the highest reward for me, and what has the highest reward for others? I asked myself this question, and the highest reward was that it could change my life and it could change somebody's life. Like right now here, we're talking about something that could potentially change somebody's lives. Asking the right questions. We're programmed to ask the wrong questions. We live in this world where it's like we see two ways that we can go in our life, and then we say, what's the worst that could happen? Then we go through our head, oh my God, what's the worst that could happen? And that person's totally going to hate me, and my life's going to suck, and everything's going to be ruined. And then, oh my God, what am I going to do if everything fails and none of this works out, and I just wasted all this time? And we go through our head like that. what's the worst that could happen? And we live these situations before it happened. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely know people that are like that. And we're all like that to some degree. We ask ourselves, what's the worst that could happen? But what about asking what's the best that can happen? How did I take that step? I said, what's the best that could happen? And I held that vision. And I just believed that if I held that vision, that something better was available for me. I got to interview Laird Hamilton, the world champion big wave surfer, and I said, how do you surf like 80-foot waves? And he said, I just do it. I was like, well, aren't you scared? And he's like, yeah, everyone's scared. Fear is something that every human being experiences, but it can paralyze us or it can make us stronger, and you don't have an excuse. He said to me, he looked me in the eyes, and he said, everybody has an excuse, and somebody always has it worse than you. And he looked at me in the eyes again. He said, no matter what, somebody always has it worse than you, no matter what. And this was so powerful that I went home that night and I cried, and the next day I cried, and then I wrote him a letter and asked him to write my foreword. But this statement is so powerful. How did I do it? I realized that nobody has a worse excuse to me, and that if I had my vision, and I knew what I wanted, and that the only thing that could stop me was myself. I hope that answers your question, Kristen. Is I did it. I can tell you a whole process that somebody else can tell you. I can't tell you a whole process. Somebody else who in the self-help movement probably has a 12-step process, I'm sure, can get you somewhere. But, to cut it simple is you just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Sorry, go ahead if you're...
Oh, man, please go with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had mentioned just briefly before you came on that, in the Paradigm Shift meeting that we had on Friday, just yesterday, we were talking about, what it means to, have, authenticity, and we were talking about, developing new habits. And one of the things that came up, and this is kind of a practical thing for people to keep in mind and to add on to what Jake's saying, I mean, it's cool for us to be able to, recognize things in our lives that we want to change. And the way how things work is that, the more that we do something, the more it's going to be ingrained into ourselves, the more that it's going to become a habit. So in order to change who we are, we need to change the habits of what we do. One thing that came up was the idea that it takes 21 days to actually sort of reprogram a part of ourselves to adapt to that new system and that new way of thinking. So I mean, even if you were to take something as simple as kind of what Jake was saying, I mean, wake up every morning and smile at yourself in the mirror and smile at yourself before you go to bed at night, and literally do that. I mean, using your willpower, do that for 21 days, and then by those 21 days, you will be a different person. It's inevitable at that point. But then you can take that whole 21 days thing and make a small little list without it needing to be too overwhelming. Because I mean, kind of going back to what Kristen, I think it was Kristen's question, how do you just drop everything and change your life completely? I don't think it always needs to be that radical, but we can take that same courage and use it to change our world through baby steps, one at a time, through our day-to-day actions, and start developing these new habits. So I mean, one of the things that we were talking about in the group was just writing down your dreams is something that I always bring it back to, and whether those be dreams as in your actual sleeping dreams, or your dreams as in your aspirations, and just taking a note of that. And other habits can be things just eating healthier, or just nutrition, or just little rituals that you create for yourself. But I mean, to take too many things on at once can sort of result in other things being dropped. So I mean, it's cool that these opportunities for change are totally within our arm's reach, but it doesn't always have to be a super drastic change as it sort of is played out to be in Jake's situation. I mean, not to say that Jake's situation, it's unique. It's, some people would even say that, it's kind of an extreme case, but it's totally a reflection of the micro and the macro of anything that we put our intention towards doing, the universe like conspires to like help make it happen, is like what I get out of like this common message. And again, like, I mean, not to sound like we're like on repeat here, but like the part of the reason of this show is really to like inspire each other to start like taking those like steps towards like being what we want to be, and to like fulfill like those like aspects of ourselves that we wish to be more of, sort of thing. So yeah, like, I don't know if Jake, you have something to bounce off that maybe? Or...
Yeah, man. You know, my stance is that we don't need to reprogram, because we don't want to live in a program. We just want to live now. And that's the whole saying, as we're talking about, is right now that you can smile, right now you can take action, and that you just have to keep taking the steps. I didn't really know. Can you please ask the question again?
Oh, I was just sort of like asking what your like thoughts were just on kind of the stuff I was talking about, just like in terms of like changing the world through like baby steps. Because I mean, kind of like almost like what you were saying, like the idea that like all of us like have that Gandhi in us, all of us have like that Martin Luther King in us, that ability to be changed. And I think that's like what I think both of us want to see. Like, we want to see other people in the world like be that like Gandhi. I mean, not, you know, in a super like iconic way, but to literally like start from where you are in your local community and start like smiling at your like cashiers at the grocery store, right? And then just like sort of make a habit of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Michael Franti, many little people in many little places do many little things, and the whole world changes.
Exactly. Yeah. For sure, man. Well, Jake, we have about like 8 minutes left on the show. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to just leave them in the live chat. Like, I'm keeping an eye on that so we can sort of see those as they're coming in. But yeah, Jake, like within these last like 8 minutes, like I just want to be able to create like, you know, use this as a platform for you to share whatever message it is that you want to share, like with the people. Like, if there's any other aspects, anything that you just want to like really emphasize.
Invite everyone that's listening right now that you can get my book on Amazon, and you can get either Kindle or physical book, and it's called Into the Wind. Into the Wind, and my name's Jake Ducey, and so I want to invite everyone to do that. And it's going to provide the inspiration to uplift you to a next level of what you're capable of. And what I want to share with people is really simple, is that it doesn't matter what you do. Maybe your calling is to write a book, do one of these quote-unquote things that we look in our world as these big things. But maybe it's not, you know. Somebody's changed the world with everything, with doorknobs, with lights, and with keys on a computer, with all these things that we may not think were so big, with paintings, with words, with lyrics. Heck, you know, somebody's even changed the world with a trash bag. You know, it's like, can you imagine if the first person that thought of the trash bag and they went over to their friends like, oh my God, dude, I got this super good idea, and we're going to put all the trash inside of bags. And then they were like, okay, well, why don't we just throw it on the ground? And he's like, no, let's just put it here. And so finally people put it in the bags, and then, you know, now we have trash bags everywhere. The guy's made a lot of money, but he's also changed the way the world works. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you love what you do. And when you leave this call, the way our world is that we live in a world where a lot of people are pretty average. You get a C and you pass your class, and, you know, you can keep going on. And so the world wants you to relinquish your dream so it can fit in, and it's not because the world's out to get you. It's just, it is what it is. And just know that there's people out here that are still going to take the steps and are still going to do what they feel called to do. And when you can remember that you're not alone, that there are other people out here that are doing this and that are taking the steps towards what they want. It doesn't matter, it's just knowing what you want. That if we went around with a video camera around the world and we just started asking people like, hey man, what do you want? Most people don't know what they want. I want you listening to answer this question when you get off the call. What do you want? What do you want from your life? What do you want from the world? What do you want from yourself? What do you want? In 1979, they did a study at Harvard University where they took the incoming MBA students and they asked them if they had written goals. And 10 years later, they surveyed their net worth. So only 3% at the time of this survey had written goals. 97% didn't. And so when they surveyed their net worth, the 3% with written goals was greater than the 97% without. So what do you want from life, What do you want from the world, from your... Can you clearly define it? It's like, how can life give you what you want if it doesn't know what you want? And saying you want abundance doesn't mean that you know what you want, because it's like, what do you want? Do you want some more gasoline, or do you want all the lawnmower shavings in the back of my car? What does abundance mean to you in your life? Can you define it? That when you can clearly define this, a compelling future is what's going to keep us going and keep us going through our day. So I just want to leave questions. I want you listening to leave with, ask yourself, what do you want? And know that any story you're telling yourself about how you can't have it it's just your story, And so ask yourself, what would have to happen 1 year from now in order for me to look back and say it was my most successful, my most fulfilling year yet? What would have to happen 1 year from now in order for me to look back and say it was my most successful, my most fulfilling year yet? What would have to happen? And then do that. Just do it. We're looking for complexities, but life's really very, very, very simple. It's what do you want, and then do it.
For sure, man. Yeah, and it's inspiring too, because once you sort of really start doing it, you start getting like these confirmations that it's happening. Like once you sort of step into like those moments where you're like, holy crap, this is exactly what I asked for, and like now here I am. And like now I'm in this moment that I created for myself, and like this is like amazing and magical, and like the idea that you just sort of you realize like how much we are involved with the creation of our own reality, and it just becomes that much more just amazing and just beautiful in so many ways. So yeah, for sure, man. Well, Jake, we do have only 60 seconds left on the show, so I'm just going to wrap it up and remind people that the conversation is not over, and we do have the Google After Party Hangout happening, and you can find a link for that up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. So join in on the Google Party Hangout or watch it on YouTube, and that's where anybody in the community can jump in and be a part of that and keep talking. And join us for future episodes on facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio, and of course, JakeDucey.com is where you can check out all of Jake's Facebook and his YouTube and the link for his book on Amazon. And definitely check it out for yourself. I got my copy in the mail. And Jake, thank you once again for being on the show. And let's just say goodbye and with any final message you'd like to share with the people here.
If not this, then something better. Remember that. If not this, then something better when you have what you want, when you know what you want. It's going to be this or something better.
There we go. Right on, man.
All right, Jake, thank you so much for being with us here on Paradigm Shift Radio and being able to help create this story, being able to share this story that all of us are a part of, so we can be that reflective lens to inspire and empower one another as we move forward on this great journey that we are all in, as we all venture into the wind. So on behalf of ParadigmShiftCentral.com, I'm Skull Babylon. Add me at Facebook.com/SkullBabylon, YouTube.com/SkullBabylon, and GoFundMe.com/Journey to Lucidity. Be sure to check that out when you get the chance. And again, on behalf of our guest, Jake Ducey, thank you once again for listening to Paradigm Shift Radio. And until next time, we'll see you in the future. Take care.